Tossing Grenades at Windmills podcast.
Welcome to the Tossing Grenades at Windmills podcast. I'm Rhombus Tix, and I'll be reading Chapter 1 of Heir of Sunfire to you, in which Timothy gets a Swirly. In hindsight, Michael wished he hadn't asked what a Swirly was. Everything about his life was a lie, but knowing the truth made it so much worse. It was the first of a series of bad choices, and given the power that would be where he would change things, except, of course, he did have the power and didn't, and that was the problem. Timothy was not the brightest of boys. He was 12 years old and had failed to prepare himself for the fact that there are some questions in the world that one should simply not ask. For example, when the school bully asks you, "Hey Timmy, you want to know what a Swirly is?" you do not reply, "Yes, Soggy, would you please show it to me?" Timmy had a blessed heart of the southern variety, and this made him very fresh meat for the Swirly makers of the world. A good heart is a good thing, but without a bit of wisdom, there are far too many predators who will crush that heart in a clenched fist. "Why, Timmy," Soggy replied, his gang of bullies chuckling beside him, "we would be delighted to show you what a Swirly is." At last, Timothy thought himself, I am winning them over with my good nature and friendship. If one were a prince in the world of Fae who judged one by purity and kindness and virtue of heart, then this might be an admirable quality. But in Terra, our blighted world, it most certainly is not. And so they all marched enthusiastically to the nearest boys' bathroom. The walls were white and clean. They always were in Our Lady of the Perpetual Smile Excellence Elementary. Nothing but the best for Timothy Blackwater. But while the gleaming tile of the floors mixed with the sky-blue paint of the stalls might convey order and serenity, Timothy felt nothing like this at all as the bullies grabbed him by both ankles and turned him upside down. It was at this point that Timmy realized that perhaps this had been a terrible idea. Already getting vague images of what a Swirly might be, the bullies lifted the toilet seat and dangled him over the top when Soggy asked, "Still want to know what a Swirly is, Timmy?" Timmy shook his head. "No, I'm sorry, Soggy. I believe I've changed my mind." "Too bad, Timmy. I believe that life is short, and we should do as much as we can to enjoy ourselves before we're dead." Soggy snapped his fingers. Such a philosopher king was Soggy. Well, the title might be certain, while the tile might have been clean, the water into which they dunked Timmy's head was not, as they dangled him by his ankles. Timmy held his breath as best he could, and then they flushed the toilet. Oh, Timothy thought as the water swirled around and around and tangled his long golden hair in a braided nightmare of brackish disgustingness. That's why they call it a Swirly. "But Timmy, the thing is, you're so naive that I truly feel this is building character for you. Now you know what a Swirly is. I want to reiterate it so you truly understand on a deeper, more philosophical level." Soggy patted Timmy gently on a drier shoulder reassuringly. "Life is suffering." As Timmy dangled there, gripped between the human slab and Edinburgh, Timmy dared not think about the dripping liquid moving down his forehead and onto his nose like tears he should be crying. Just then, he couldn't help but see himself in the mirror. He realized he was beautiful, both inside and out, and that on some level justice would prevail because the pure in heart would always triumph in the end, though it might take 100 years. Timmy knew that this was a very odd thought, as he was immediately inverted and saw the magical porcelain portal yaw up before him yet again to aquatically help him improve his personality. So jarring was this inversion that Timmy almost forgot to hold his breath. At least the bowl was cleaner this time. They swirled him again. Timmy wiped his face and sputtered, "Why are you doing this?" "We saw you talking to Tricia," the human slap nodded. "She's an SJW." "What's an SJW?" Soggy snapped his fingers, and this time Timmy dunked again before he could hold his breath, water spilling into his lungs. It burned. When they brought him up for precious air, he kept trying to cough up. Vaguely, Timmy wondered why he wasn't kicking their asses. He also wondered why he was wondering this, since he had no fighting skills whatsoever. "That's for not reading a newspaper," Soggy had said many times that ignorance was for the strong. Timmy coughed, sputtered, and answered badly in a way that didn't sound like anything. Curiously, Soggy held up a hand, preventing Slab and Edinburgh from dunking him again. "What was that, Timmy?" "Didn't talk, just asked for directions to barely knock." A profound look of sadness crossed Soggy's face. "Oh, Timmy, bad enough that you're an SJW, but now you're not even sticking up for your friends?" Soggy nodded to the other two, and suddenly Timmy felt that water again, and this time for a very long time. In theory, it couldn't have been that long because he didn't die, but for that short time his whole world reduced to white and the sounds of flushing. "What's all this, then?" The voice screamed with authority. It was British, it was old, and it was angry. Mr. Hardwick had been a constable in England before retiring to Florida. He was a school constable. Obviously a strange definition of the word retired. Soggy tried to lie his way out. "We were just showing Timmy what a swirly was." School policy was very clear on such matters. The children had fought. Therefore, all the children got sent home. The school had zero tolerance. The students were all marched to the office, and one by one they were all summarily sent to the short bus, back to their place of residence. No one bothered to wipe Timmy off or give him a towel. No one offered to wash him. He was a violator of zero tolerance. There was something inherently unfair about blaming the victim to Timmy, but given the taste in his mouth, he really didn't want to open it more. And this was not his first rodeo. Timmy had been in the office plenty of times, and he knew what Aunt Marigold supported. Or who his Aunt Marigold supported. It wasn't him. Legally, he was Timothy Rand Blackwater until he turned 18 or could change it back. He knew Aunt Marigold loved him, but he wished he had someone else. He didn't, and that meant that when Principal Blockage wanted to use him as an object lesson, he had no one in his corner. What surprised him was that Tricia was being marched back to the bus and sat right next to him, while the school admins placed Soggy, Slab, and Edinburgh on the back as well. She had mocha skin and the deepest green eyes he'd ever seen. She looked at him she looked just as puzzled as he was, but also 10 parts pissed. "What happened to you?" she asked. "Swirly." Oh, her voice sounded sympathetic, while she moved to another seat across the aisle, pushing her well-kept burlap backpack, sewn with buttons and patches on the far side. "I still don't see what this has to do with me. I've never been hit by blockage before. I'm an A student." "My fault. They were giving me a swirly because I talked to you." "They did what? Why?" "They said you're an SJW, whatever that is." "What?" She looked pissed, and then looked back right at Soggy, Slab, and Edinburgh. Soggy slunk down in his seat, and the other two looked nervous. If Timmy didn't know better, he swore that Soggy had gone a whiter shade of pale. "Timmy is using hyperbole." "Look who used the word of the day calendar." Tricia scowled and practically stomped back to the back of the bus. Lotto, the guy driving it, officially should stop her, but he was too lazy to care. He looked up from his crossword and then looked back down. Tricia looked at Soggy and whispered. Timmy listened, but he couldn't hear it. He put it together as best he could, with half-whispered phrases and a bit of lip-reading, but he was pretty sure it went something like this. "You're right to be afraid, Mordecai. Yes, what they said about my brother running his part of the prison is true. No, my favorite movie is actually The Girl Who Played with Fire. Did you see that, Soggy? The mean girls aren't mean to me, are they, Soggy? That's right, Slab. That rumor is true, too. So why did you tell Blockage that I was involved in this? Oh, please." No one gives an immediate word filter appeared in his mind, placed there by years of conditioning from Aunt Marigold. "Fluffy bunny, about your Godwin darn video games. I don't like the police. I just don't like the police being unpleasant to people who didn't deserve it, who don't deserve to be unpleasant to." It was at this moment that Timmy realized that he could hear them from where he was sitting, and she was whispering. And how was he reading their lips when she had her back to him? But seeing her act like this made him see how noble she was. Noble was the way someone as beautiful as him should act. Not naively noble, like asking what a swirly was, but sublimely noble, like a shooting star or a sequoia. He also realized his name wasn't Timmy. What the Helen of Troy was going on? Tricia came back and punched him in the arm, smiling. Welcome to the Not Lame Club. Do you mind if I get off with you? I don't want my mother to see it. I got sent home. Timmy nodded. Yeah, Aunt Petunia isn't very supportive either. Arching a brow, Tricia shook her head. No, I mean, I don't want to lose my mother for a month while she organizes a massive campaign to have Principal Blockage resign. I like her being home with us when she gets off from work. You need to stop making assumptions, Timmy. My name isn't Timmy. She looked at him now like he was a loon. The bus stopped. Tricia grabbed her backpack. Then what's your name? I don't know. What? My last name is on my birth certificate locked in Aunt Marigold's safe, but I just realized my first name isn't my first name either. It's something else. Okay. Timmy wasn't sure how to explain it to her, but as they both stepped off the bus, he looked at the bright pink stone fences with metal bars. Doesn't it bother you that the seasons never change here? Sure they change, she shrugged and smiled. It's just not the same as other places. And is that a siren? They looked up and saw a giant SWAT van streaming by. As they kept walking, Timmy felt a sinking feeling in the pit of his stomach as they approached the door to his house. Rather than knock, they took out a small battering ram and knocked down the door. They tossed a flashbang grenade inside the house, and there was a shriek. Timmy could not believe what he was seeing. Tricia whistled. You know what, Timmy? This whole mysterious past thing is interesting to me. I want to hear more about it. But I'm not going to your house after all. Looks like you got swatted. Swatted? Tricia generally motioned to Timmy's house. Timmy learned from the Swirly situation and did not ask. He waved at Tricia. See you tomorrow, not Timmy, she waved back. Timmy waved and then realized to his horror that the shriek had come from Aunt Marigold. She would not be happy.
This has been the Tossing Grenades at Windmills podcast. Buy my book, Have Name Will Travel, at Amazon and other markets. RedAnvilCreative.com contains all our podcasts. Copyright
2023.
To fight the forces of evil!
Welcome to the secret commentary at the end of each chapter. So as I sit here at 7 a.m. on a Saturday morning on a 3-day weekend, you must be asking yourself, Rhombus, where do you come up with such twisted ideas for characters like Swirly? And I think to myself, what would happen if, hypothetically, a man who had a lovely 3-day weekend away from work with his wife was sleeping peacefully, when a cat, despite telling him to shut up twice, was meowing at the top of his lungs to be fed at 7 a.m. And I'm thinking, what would a bad person do to a cat at 7 a.m. on a 3-day weekend? And I'm thinking, what a remarkable writing opportunity, because, of course, a good person would never do what Swirly did to Timmy over and over and over again for being woken up at 7 a.m. in the morning. But, they say that art is catharsis. We take the dark parts of ourselves or a dark part of a hypothetical man and channel them into our creative works so that we don't actually do the things that involve, showing Timmy not to wake you up at 7 o'clock in the morning. Over and over again. But in all seriousness, I was bullied as a child. I was guileless like my mother. I mean, I'm not guileless now. But anyway, I did a lot of stupid things as a kid. I'm not going to get into specifics, but they would definitely gross you out. And things of, I was said, "Hey, Tom, you want to eat this really super gross thing?" And I'm like, "Well, okay." And yeah, it's a really super gross thing. And I'm not even going to gross you out, but sometimes being wise involves having a degree of skepticism about human nature. And I was Timmy. And, several years ago when I wrote this, we were still trying to have kids. And I wrote this book as a warning fairy tale about the dangers of blindly trusting the traditions in which you were raised. For those of you not familiar, there's a book series I wrote. I mean, not a book series. Podcast series I did several years ago called 8 Questions That Should Be Asked About the LDS Church. And if you've ever wondered about the LDS Church, or you are LDS, I highly recommend you listen to it, because it might help you avoid being woken up at 7 o'clock in the morning and, waking somebody up at 7 o'clock in the morning and being Timmy. That is the whole point, ladies and gentlemen, of a warning fairy tale. I had a reader read this story, and while she gave a lot of really good feedback, the most obnoxious thing that she wrote was, "And the ending for Timmy is inappropriate to the hero's journey." Duh! The hero's journey does not end the way a dark fairy tale does. Now, not every fairy tale has an unhappy ending, hence Disney and Disney princesses and "When you wish upon a star, makes no difference who you are. The magic spell is broken, and the beast is a handsome, fuckable prince." Yeah, no, I'm talking about a warning fairy tale, not a happy ever after fairy tale. I'm talking about you do not want to be that person. You do not want to be Timmy. Now, Timmy, thanks to the advice of Trisha, survives more than 2 chapters and does some quasi-heroic things, but Timmy makes some bad choices. I'm sorry for those of you in the audience rooting for Timmy, ladies and gentlemen. In fact, the whole prologue was originally a note by Rhombus Tix giving an explanation for the reader to waylay their expectations, and I actually like that note. But thanks to the feedback I got, I decided that the original ending was a little bit too depressing for those of you who want, "When you wish upon a star, yes, you can wake your owner up at 7 a.m. in the morning and get fed and not put in a toilet and swirled repeatedly over and over again. When you wish your dream come true, it will come true." Yeah, it didn't come true for Timmy, and it still won't. This is a warning fairy tale. And even if I give Timmy / Michael a slightly better ending than he deserves, Michael will definitely suffer consequences for his actions. I certainly suffered consequences for the naive choices I made for 35 years. And I don't want other people to have to make those decisions. Timmy is actually technically a child I never had. But like any child, he's a little bit his father and a little bit his mother. So, Timmy / Michael is probably actually in some ways a better person than I am. But he does make the wrong choices because he didn't have 2 strong, loving parents. A mother who is wise and understands the nature of books, and a father who is noble and, a fairy prince and some version of me that it does not exist, but, hypothetically could exist and would be noble and true of character and teach Timmy, sword fighting and horseback riding, and not to, ask what a swirly is unless you have a very large sword in case, Timmy or, Swirly does something that you really don't want to happen. Sometimes, ladies and gentlemen, bullies need to be stood up to. And sometimes, ladies and gentlemen, if you're a noble fairy prince who's not an idiot and who is the subject of a warning fairy tale, you need to be the hero. And I am not a hero, but the point is that sometimes all of us need to stand up in the face of great evil and collectively defend ourselves from that evil. And if we allow authority figures to lie to us and to betray us and betray our interests, we end up like Timmy.